The Galactic Union had a rule carved into the bones of its history. Never waste resources on a dying species. Empires had fallen for that mistake before, overcommitting fleets, diverting power, chasing ghosts across the stars. Evolution, entropy, and time handled most civilizations just fine. So when the order came down, initiate cleansing protocol. 3. Confusion rippled through the high command. The designation alone felt misplaced. Humans were not a threat. Not strategically, not technologically, not biologically. They were fragile, short-lived, and divided by borders that shifted faster than their politics could keep up. Their ships barely skimmed the edges of their own system. Their weapons were crude. Their unity non-existent. In another 1,000 years, perhaps they might have become relevant. But now they were a footnote. And yet the Union had marked them for extinction. At the edge of the Sol system, the fleet assembled. It was not a small force. 12 species contributed ships, war-hardened cruisers, carrier hulks, living vessels grown from bioengineered flesh, and silent black constructs that bent light around them like shadows. Thousands of vessels formed a silent wall against the stars, their combined mass dimming the distant constellations. It was excessive. It was deliberate. And it was deeply unsettling. On the command deck of the flagship Vale Thran, High Commander Vale stood with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the blue sphere rotating peacefully below. From orbit, it looked alive. White clouds spiraled over vast oceans. Continents glowed faintly with the lights of cities. Storms rolled across hemispheres with slow, majestic power. It didn't look like a target. It looked like something worth preserving. "Commander," an officer said, breaking the silence. "Final scans are complete." Vale didn't turn. "Report." No planetary shields detected. No large-scale orbital defenses. Surface weapons are primitive. The officer hesitated. Estimated resistance capability is minimal. And their military? Fragmented. Uncoordinated. No unified command structure. Vale frowned slightly. Estimated time to subjugation? The officer checked the data again, as if hoping it would change. "4 hours, sir." That made Vale turn. 4. "Yes, Commander." A murmur spread quietly across the bridge. 4 hours. For an extinction-level operation. Vale had led campaigns that lasted decades. He had watched species fight to their last breath, entire planets burning rather than surrendering. Nothing had ever been this easy. Too easy. "Run the scans again," he said. "We already have, sir. Results are consistent." Vale stepped closer to the viewport, his reflection merging with the image of Earth beyond. A world unaware. Or pretending to be. "Commander," another officer said, "Union Command is requesting confirmation." Of course they were. Even they knew something felt off. Vale hesitated. For the briefest moment, instinct, old and hard-earned, told him to delay. To question. To probe deeper. But the Union did not tolerate hesitation. And so he gave the only answer he could. "Confirmed." The pause. Then the order came back, cold and absolute. "Proceed." The fleet moved. Massive carriers shifted position, their hangars opening like the jaws of some ancient beast. Waves of strike craft poured out, followed by precision bombardment vessels aligning their weapons toward the planet below. Targeting the Pacific Ocean, the weapons officer announced. "Low-density population zone. Demonstration strike authorized." Vale nodded once. "Fire." A beam of pure energy lanced downward from orbit. It struck the ocean with surgical precision. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the sea exploded. Water vaporized instantly, a massive column of steam and displaced ocean rising kilometers into the sky. Shockwaves rippled outward, slamming into coastlines thousands of kilometers away. The atmosphere itself seemed to shudder. It was a warning. A message. "We are here. We can end you." The bridge waited. For panic. For retaliation. For anything. But Earth did nothing. No missiles launched. No defense systems activated. No emergency broadcasts flooded the channels. Cities continued to glow. Storms continued to roll. The planet ignored them. Vale's unease sharpened. Open all communication channels, he ordered. Channels open. He stepped forward, his voice steady. This is High Commander Vale of the Galactic Union. You have been designated for immediate subjugation. Surrender your world and your species will be preserved under Union oversight. Silence. Not even static. Just nothing. Vale's jaw tightened. Repeat the message. The officer complied. Still nothing. No reply. No resistance. No fear. It was as if humanity didn't even realize they were about to be erased. Or worse, as if they didn't care. Commander, the sensor officer said suddenly, we're detecting a signal. Vale turned sharply. Origin. The officer's hands moved quickly across the console. Unclear. Clarify. It's not localized, sir. It's everywhere. Everywhere? Before Vale could respond, the signal burst across the bridge. Across every system. Across every ship in the fleet. It bypassed encryption, security, language barriers, translating itself instantly into every known tongue. A single sentence filled the air. Human. Unmistakably clear. You shouldn't have come. No distortion. No hostility. Just certainty. The bridge fell silent. Even the background hum of the ship seemed to dim. Vale felt it then. That instinct again. Stronger now. Sharper. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Trace it, he ordered quietly. The officer swallowed. I'm trying, sir, but it's not coming from one place. Then where is it coming from? The officer looked up slowly, fear creeping into his expression. Everywhere. Vale turned back to Earth. The blue planet spun on, unchanged. Peaceful. Silent. Waiting. And for the first time in his long, war-filled life, High Commander Vale hesitated. Because deep down, beneath training and loyalty and duty, he understood something the Union did not. They hadn't chosen a target. They had stepped into something else entirely. And whatever it was, it had just spoken. The words lingered in the air long after the signal faded. You shouldn't have come. No distortion. No aggression. No panic. Just certainty. On the bridge of the Vale Thran, no one spoke for several seconds. Officers exchanged glances, subtle but telling. Even the most seasoned among them felt it now, that creeping unease, like standing at the edge of something unseen. Vale broke the silence. Status. Signal has ceased, the comms officer replied. No further transmissions detected. Source. Still everywhere. Vale exhaled slowly through his nose. The trick. A psychological tactic. It had to be. Primitive species often resorted to theatrics when faced with overwhelming force. But something about this felt different. Too controlled. Too calm. Commander, the tactical officer said carefully, awaiting authorization for ground deployment. Vale didn't answer immediately. He stared at Earth. Nothing had changed. No defensive mobilization. No signs of global panic. The same glowing cities, the same drifting clouds. If anything, the planet looked indifferent. It wasn't right. But hesitation was not an option. Proceed, he said at last. Deploy ground forces. Standard occupation protocol. Yes, Commander. Orders rippled through the fleet. Dropships tore through Earth's atmosphere in perfect formation. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Burning streaks of light carved across the sky as they descended toward major population centers. New York, New Shanghai, Lagos, Sao Paulo, London, Tokyo. Strategic points. Centers of power. If humanity had a response, it would be there. The first ships landed. Heavy doors slammed open. Alien soldiers poured into human streets, armored exosuits, plasma rifles humming, scanning arrays sweeping across buildings and crowds. And for a moment, nothing happened. Humans were still there. Standing. Watching. Confused. Some ran. Others froze. A few raised small devices, recording, transmitting, reacting in ways that seemed almost mundane. This is their defense? One officer muttered over the comms. No organized resistance, another reported. No military presence in immediate vicinity. They're not even evacuating, a third added. It's like they don't understand. Vale cut the channel. He didn't need to hear the rest. He could see it. Through the live feeds streaming onto the bridge. Humans acting normal. Not coordinated. Not strategic. Living. Commander, the sensor officer said, we are still detecting no global communication surge. No emergency broadcasts. No unified response. Vale's brow furrowed. That's impossible. Even the most primitive civilizations panicked. They shouted. They warned. They fought or fled. But this was quiet. Too quiet. Hold all units, Vale ordered suddenly. There was a pause. Commander, the tactical officer asked. Do not advance further. Maintain positions. But sir, we have full operational superiority. There's no sign of... Hold, Vale repeated, sharper this time. Something was wrong. He could feel it now, deep and undeniable. Like a battlefield just before the first shot. Except the shot had already been fired. And he didn't know by whom. It happened. Not with explosions. Not with weapons. With silence. Across every feed. Every city. Every channel. Humanity vanished. It started subtly. A man mid-step on a street in New York, gone between frames. A group gathered around a dropship in Lagos. There, then not. A crowded market in New Shanghai. Emptied in less than a second. No flashes. No energy spikes. No visible cause. Absence. Report. Vale snapped. I don't understand, the sensor officer stammered. Life signs are dropping across the entire planet. How? There's no energy signature. No displacement. It's like they're just... Say it. The officer swallowed. Gone. The feeds became chaotic. Alien soldiers turned in confusion, weapons raised at nothing. Where did they go? Scanning, no targets. They were just here. Command, we've lost visual on all civilians. Across the globe, the same reports echoed. Entire cities, empty. Cars sat idle in the streets. Doors hung open. Lights flickered in abandoned buildings. But no humans. Not a single one. Vale felt something cold settle in his chest. Check subsurface scans, he ordered. Underground structures. Hidden bunkers. Already done, sir. No mass movement detected. Orbital evacuation? No ships launched. Cloaking technology? Beyond their capability. Vale stared at the screens. At the empty world. No species can disappear like this, he said quietly. But Earth had. Then the comms lit up. Screams. Contact. The voice was panicked. Terrified. Unknown hostiles. They're not. Static. Gone. Another channel opened. We're under attack. Repeat, under attack. What are you engaging? Vale demanded. I don't know. They're not showing up on scanners. Gunfire echoed through the transmission. Plasma bursts, heavy impacts, soldiers shouting over each other. They're inside the perimeter. How did they get? The bridge erupted into motion. Multiple ground units reporting hostile contact. No visual confirmation on targets. Energy readings are fluctuating. I can't lock onto anything. Vale's pulse quickened. What are we fighting? He demanded. No one answered. Because no one knew. Bring up live visuals, Vale ordered. The main screen flickered. Then stabilized. A city. Empty streets. Union soldiers moving cautiously through the silence, weapons raised, scanning. Hold formation, one of them said. Stay close. Whatever took the humans. Something moved. Not fast. Not slow. Wrong. The air itself seemed to bend. A distortion. A ripple. One of the soldiers was gone. No sound. No struggle. Erased. The rest opened fire instantly. Plasma bolts tore through the space where their comrade had stood. But there was nothing there. Nothing to hit. Nothing to fight. On the bridge, no one breathed. Vale leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen. Enhance the distortion, he ordered. The image sharpened. And for a brief, flickering moment, they saw it. A shape. Almost human. But stretched. Broken. Like reality couldn't hold it properly. Its outline shimmered, shifting between forms that refused to stay still. Watching. Waiting. Then it turned toward the camera. And everything cut to black. Silence filled the bridge. Heavy. Crushing. Vale spoke first. Slowly. Carefully. Recall all ground units. The tactical officer hesitated. Commander, we still have numerical superiority. Recall them. The order snapped through the room like a blade. No more deployments. No further engagement. Pull them out, now. Because Vale finally understood one thing. Something simple. Something undeniable. This was no invasion. This was no war. This was a mistake. A catastrophic one. And whatever they had just stepped into was waking up. The recall order came too late. It always did. Across Earth's surface, Union forces scrambled to regroup, dropships lifting off in chaotic bursts, soldiers retreating through empty streets that felt more like tombs than cities. But the silence followed them. It clung to them. And something inside it moved. Extraction zones are compromised, the tactical officer shouted. We're losing units faster than we can track. Define losing, Vale demanded. The officer hesitated. They're not dying, Commander. Vale's eyes narrowed. Then what's happening? They're disappearing. Another feed lit up the main screen. A squad in what had once been a human financial district. Towering glass structures surrounded them, reflecting nothing but emptiness. Papers drifted in the wind. A vehicle idled with its door open, engines still running. No humans. Only Union soldiers. Stay tight, the squad leader said, voice strained. We move together. No one breaks formation. Sir, if scanners still show nothing. I know. That's what worries me. A ripple passed through the air. Subtle. Barely visible. Like heat distortion. Did you see that? One soldier whispered. Hold position, the leader said. Weapons up. They turned. Slowly. Scanning. Waiting. The ripple came again. Closer. Then one of them screamed. It's behind. He vanished. Mid-sentence. Mid-breath. Gone. The squad opened fire instantly. Plasma bolts filled the air, lighting the empty street in flashes of blue-white energy. Contact at 12 o'clock. No, it's on the flank. I can't see it. Another soldier disappeared. Then another. No bodies. No impact. Just absence. Fall back, the leader shouted. Fall. He was cut off. Not by a weapon, but by silence. He stood there one moment, and the next, he wasn't. The feed cut. On the bridge of the Vale Thran, no one spoke. No one moved. Because for the first time, they weren't watching a battle. They were watching something else entirely. Commander, the sensor officer said, voice barely steady, we're detecting anomalies. Define anomalies. They don't match any known life form, energy signature, or dimensional reading. It's like, he struggled for the words. Like they don't fully exist in our space. Vale's gaze hardened. Show me. Multiple feeds appeared. Dozens. Hundreds. Every major deployment zone. And in all of them, the same thing. Ships. Not solid. Not stable. Some looked almost human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, but elongated, distorted, as if stretched across dimensions that didn't align. Others were worse. Masses of shifting geometry. Angles that shouldn't exist. Movements that didn't follow time the way they should. One flickered, and appeared several meters away without crossing the space between. Another seemed to fold inward on itself, and then unfold somewhere else entirely. They didn't attack. Not in any way the Union understood. They simply removed. What are those things? An officer whispered. No one answered. Vale stepped closer to the screen. Watching. Analyzing. Forcing his mind to remain calm. There had to be a pattern. A logic. Something. Then he saw it. One of the entities paused. Just for a moment. its distorted form flickering, stabilizing. And for a fraction of a second, it looked human. Not fully, not perfectly, but enough. Freeze that frame, Vale ordered. The image locked. Grainy, unstable, but clear enough. A face. Almost. Eyes where eyes should be. A mouth that didn't quite align. Features stretched like reflections in broken glass. That's impossible, someone said. Vale didn't respond. Because a realization was forming. Slow, heavy, unavoidable. Those aren't random entities, he said quietly. The bridge turned toward him. They're not invading, Vale continued. They're not hunting. He pointed at the frozen image. They're responding. Responding to what? The tactical officer asked. Vale's eyes moved back to Earth. To the empty cities. To the vanished population. To the silence. To us. The room went still. Commander, the sensor officer said suddenly, we're picking up a pattern in the disappearances. Explain. They're targeting active threats first. Armed units. Command structures. High-energy signatures. Prioritizing military, Vale muttered. Yes, but not just that. The officer hesitated. They're avoiding infrastructure. Meaning? Buildings, power grids, planetary systems, they're untouched. Only us. Vale felt a click. The final piece. They're not destroying the planet, he said. They're defending it. A chill spread across the bridge. But, from what? Someone asked. Vale didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was already there. Obvious. Terrifying. They're defending it. He turned back to the screen. To the frozen, almost human face. From us. The implications hit like a shockwave. This wasn't a passive species, the tactical officer said slowly. This wasn't an unprotected world, another added. Vale's voice cut through them. No. He looked at Earth again. At the silent, waiting planet. This was never unprotected. A new alarm blared. But, urgent. Commander, the navigation officer shouted. FTL systems are fluctuating. What does that mean? It means... The officer froze. Hands hovering over the controls. Eyes wide. We can't leave. Silence. Clarify, Vale said, his voice dangerously calm. Jump drives are active, the officer said slowly. Coordinates are locked. Engines are responding. The pause. But space. He swallowed. Isn't. Vale felt it then. Not fear. Not yet. But the undeniable weight of realization. They hadn't just engaged an enemy. They hadn't just triggered a defense system. They had stepped into something far older. Far deeper. Far more dangerous. And whatever it was waking up. The fleet was trapped. Not by weapons. Not by force. But by something far worse. By the absence of escape. Jump drives are still cycling, the navigation officer shouted. All systems are nominal, but space is resisting. Resisting. Vale snapped. Space does not resist. I know, sir, but, look. The main display shifted. A map of local space appeared. Or what should have been local space. Coordinates warped. Distances stretched and folded in ways that defied every law the Union understood. Stars flickered in and out of existence. The vacuum itself rippled, like a surface disturbed by something moving beneath it. It wasn't malfunction. It wasn't interference. It was as if reality itself had been altered. Shut down all jump attempts, Vale ordered. We conserve power. No blind jumps. Yes, Commander. Reorient defensive formations. Pull all ships into tight orbit around the flagship. The fleet obeyed, massive vessels shifting position, forming a protective sphere. Instinct. Primitive. Useless. Ground forces. Vale. The answer came quickly. We've lost 73%. The pause. No confirmed casualties. Vale closed his eyes briefly. Not casualties. Losses. Gone. Remaining units are attempting extraction, the tactical officer continued. But the entities are. I know what they're doing, Vale cut in. Because he'd been watching. Every feed. Every disappearance. Every impossible movement. They're hurting us, he said. Silence fell. Hurting? The officer repeated. Yes. Vale stepped forward, gesturing toward the screens. Look at the pattern. They're not wiping us out completely. They're pushing us back, forcing survivors toward extraction points, toward orbit. Why would they do that? Someone asked. Vale's expression darkened. Because they don't want us spread across the planet. The realization landed heavily. They want us contained. A new signal burst through the ship. Unavoidable. The same voice as before. Human. You're starting to understand. Every system lit up as the transmission overrode all channels. No encryption could stop it. No firewall could block it. It wasn't entering their systems. It was already there. Vale stepped forward. Identify yourself. The pause. We told you not to come. Who are you? Vale demanded, louder now. What is this? What are those entities? For the first time, the voice changed. Not in tone, but in weight. They are what remains. The main display flickered. Then shifted. Images flooded the screen. Not live feeds. Records. Ancient. Fragmented. Civilization, vast, luminous, spread across a spiral arm. Gone. Another, machines of impossible design, orbiting a dying star. Gone. A third, biological titans drifting between planets. Gone. Each image ended the same way. Silence. Absence. Nothing left. Vale felt his pulse slow. Not calm, but focused. Extinction events, he said. No, the voice replied. The pause. Containment failures. The room went still. Vale stared at the images. At the repeating pattern. At the absence that followed each civilization. They found something, he said slowly. Yes. And it destroyed them. Another pause. No. Vale's jaw tightened. Then what? The answer came softly. They opened it. The bridge seemed to grow colder. Vale's gaze snapped back to Earth. To the shimmering distortions spreading across its surface. To the way the oceans seemed to ripple unnaturally. To the way the continents flickered. You're saying this planet, he began, is not what you think it is. The image changed again. But not as it appeared now. Something older. Something deeper. A lattice of energy wrapped around the planet. Vast, intricate, impossible. Anchored in its core. Extending beyond its atmosphere. Into space itself. A cage. Vale felt the truth hit him before the voice spoke again. This world was never just a home. It's a prison, Vale whispered. Silence. Yes. Every officer on the bridge stared at the display. At the lattice. At the scale of it. What is it holding? Someone asked, barely audible. The voice did not answer immediately. And that silence was worse than anything it could have said. Finally, something that should not exist. Vale's mind raced, connecting fragments. The vanished civilizations. The entities on the surface. The disappearance of humanity. You're not the prisoners, he said. The pause. No. You're the wardens. Another pause. Longer this time. Heavier. We were. The distinction landed like a blow. Were. Vale's eyes widened. What does that mean? He demanded. For the first time, there was something in the voice. Not fear. Not anger. Exhaustion. It means you attacked the lock. The planet below them shifted. Not physically. Not in any way sensors could measure. But reality around it. A thin line spread across space. Barely visible. Like glass under pressure. Commander, the sensor officer whispered. We're detecting structural failure in local spacetime. Vale didn't look away. He couldn't. Explain, he said quietly. The officer's voice shook. It's breaking. The voice returned. One final time. So certain. And now. The crack widened. Light bent inward. Stars distorted. The void itself seemed to peel back. Something moved. The door is opening. Vale felt it then. For the first time. Not unease. not dread. Because he finally understood. Humanity hadn't been weak, hadn't been unprepared, hadn't been unaware. They had been holding something back. And the Union had just let it go. The first thing that broke wasn't a ship. It was reality. The fracture spread outward from Earth like a crack in glass. Silent. Invisible to most sensors. But unmistakable. Stars bent around it. Light stretched, warped, and vanished into angles that should not exist. The black of space peeled back. Not like a curtain, but like a wound opening in something that had never been meant to bleed. "Commander," the sensor officer whispered, "we are losing reference points." "What does that mean?" Vale asked, though part of him already knew. "It means space is no longer behaving like space." The fleet panicked. Orders flooded comms channels, retreat vectors, emergency overrides, blind jumps into uncharted coordinates. Some ships fired their drives anyway, vanishing in flashes of distorted light. None of them reappeared. "Hold formation," Vale barked. "No unauthorized jumps. Stay together." It was instinct. It was discipline. It was meaningless. Because something was coming through. At first, it wasn't visible. Only the distortion growing wider, deeper, darker. A shape. Not defined. Not contained. Too large to see as a whole, only as fragments that slid into existence before vanishing again. A curve that could have been a limb, or a horizon. A surface that shimmered like an ocean made of stars, folding inward and outward at the same time. And behind it... "No," someone whispered on the bridge. "No, no, no." The entities on Earth, the distorted, almost human figures, began to change. Their movements slowed. Their forms stabilized. For the first time, they looked less like anomalies, and more like something deliberate. "They're not attacking anymore," the tactical officer said, stunned. Vale understood why. "They were never the threat," he said quietly. "They were the lock." The voice returned. Not through the comms. Not through the systems. Everywhere. "We held it." Vale closed his eyes for a moment. Just a moment. "How long?" he asked. Silence. "As long as we could." The distortion tore wider. And something looked back. Not with eyes. Not with awareness in any way the Union could comprehend. But with presence. An awareness so vast, so alien, that simply existing within its notice began to unravel everything. The first ship vanished. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Removed. One moment it was there, engines burning, weapons charging, crew screaming. Then nothing. No debris. No energy release. No trace it had ever existed. "Fire," someone shouted. The fleet unleashed everything. Beams of energy, kinetic strikes, antimatter payloads, enough firepower to crack planets, to erase civilizations. All of it vanished into the distortion. Swallowed. Ignored. Meaningless. "It's not reacting," the weapons officer yelled. "It doesn't even." He stopped. Because he realized the truth mid-sentence. It wasn't ignoring them. They simply didn't matter. The thing moved. Not through space. But into it. Ships began to disappear in clusters now. Formations collapsing as vessels simply ceased to be. Command structures dissolved. Communications fractured into static and screams. "Commander, we're losing containment across all vectors," the tactical officer cried. Vale didn't respond. Because he wasn't looking at the fleet anymore. He was looking at Earth. The planet shimmered, its surface no longer stable. The oceans flickered between blue and something darker. The continents seemed to exist in overlapping states, present and absent at the same time. And for a moment, just a moment, he saw them. Humanity. Not as soldiers. Not as a species. But as something else. Billions of shapes, layered across reality, holding the fracture in place. Holding it together. Holding it closed. They had been. "They were never weak," Vale whispered. "No." The voice answered. Closer now. Fading. "They weren't unadvanced." "No." "They were holding it back." The pause. "Yes." Vale felt something break inside him. Not physically, but something deeper. All the wars, all the conquests, all the species the Union had judged, categorized, erased. And here was one that had never fought back. Because it had been fighting something else. Something far worse. The thing expanded. And reality followed. Ships vanished faster now. Entire sections of the fleet erased in seconds. The Veilthran shuddered as space around it twisted, alarms screaming across every console. "Commander, we have to," the officer began. "There is nowhere to go," Veil said quietly. And it was true. There was no escape. No retreat. No survival. Only understanding. The voice spoke one last time. "So tired. Almost human. You wanted a target." The pause. "So we became one." The bridge lights flickered. Then dimmed. Then began to fade entirely. Veil stood straight. Hands behind his back. Eyes forward. A commander to the end. And in that final moment, he understood the message. The warning. The truth. Humanity had never been the target. They had been the trap. And the Union had just sprung it. The last transmission ever recorded from the fleet was fragmented. Broken. Barely recoverable. But one line remained intact. Humanity wasn't the target. A pause of static. They were the trap all along. Nothing. No ships. No signals. No fleet. Only a fractured region of space where something impossible now existed. And far below, Earth was gone. Not destroyed. Not erased. Gone. As if the wardens had left their post. And taken the door with them.